Live from Nashville comes round 3 of the VOR Indycar Series here at Nashville Superspeedway. It's our Music City 300 and a track that has produced much tension and much history among drivers here in the VOR Indycar Series. Lots of fabled history on this track. It's been almost a staple in the championship. And I'm Howie Burrows alongside Lucas Moody, here to bring you the action from the high banks today in cars that actually make this track resemble its namesake a little bit more than the typical stock car fare. Season 13 led to a flashpoint on this circuit with the bump and run of destiny that led to much retaliation and much strife on the track. Plenty of opportunities to get draft runs on the circuit. Sebastian Kinder will know that very much so. He remains on the track today, hoping to maybe try and get some retaliation for his losses on the track. And of course, battles for the win can remain dramatic as ever. This is the track where anything can happen on the high banks at the high speeds at Nashville Superspeedway. And we're locked and loaded for another great one here on the track.
And now we can go ahead and look at our current championship standings. Here they are. We have Rodden Eefdink in our first place with 70 points, and just slightly behind in 66, that's going to be Kyle Klenworth. Then behind him, our last week's winner after a couple of disqualifications is Amon Law in that 13 car, another rookie on this grid. And then in fourth is Sebastian Kinder, followed by Kostek Solowaj, Fyodor Dozhenko, Bryce Saucier, and Marcos Cesare to round out your top 8.
Last week, dramatic as ever on the track, our race winner eating a disqualification over the line, and he won't be showing up today, and neither will last week's inherited winner, Amon Lal, who I think has just decided to dip for his own reasons down the line. In the Teams Championship, there's still plenty to play for on the track. Rogue Racing currently have the jump, but Altena Autosport, or as I've been told to call it, Altena Autosport, messing it up on the first go around on the day, is close in tow. It's two teams head-to-head here on a track that produces plenty of drama. Lower downforce than normal on this circuit. Typically, it's this season on iRacing being the home of some intense pack racing. A massive low downforce package is attempting to alleviate this, but it could still be unusual with the weather conditions on the track.
Yeah, we're gonna get some nice tight racing. You mentioned it, that track is very, very cool. A nice 32 degrees Celsius, I believe. That is not in Fahrenheit. So it's going to create some good racing, and that makes that high line and that low line work very, very well, unlike some other tracks like New Hampshire or Milwaukee that have that slider, that have that lower banking. The high line's not as viable, but around Nashville, it has that higher banking, so it allows for a multi-groove racetrack.
This track certainly actually brings the Superspeedway to its name in these cars, usually the track that finishes the Indycar Championship, and very soon actually, it may have already finished in my head, and that's why VOR gets ready just to kick it off. One of our last ovals for a short while, the Indianapolis GP, on the way, of course, being followed by the 500 down the line. But we've gone to big tracks, we've gone to small tracks. Lucas, I think this is a little bit something in the middle. It's incredibly fast around here, but it's very, very different because it is quite a thin track, and you really need to put some work in to get past people.
Yeah, it's kind of... because I don't really want to quite call it an intermediate track, but it's also not small enough to call it a short track. It's in this weird middle ground of almost like an intermediate short track, because you think about tracks considered intermediate. You think about Atlanta, Auto Club, Michigan, Las Vegas, stuff like that. But there's no way this track is short enough to be with Bristol or Darlington or New Hampshire or tracks like that. So it is in this middle ground where it's not big enough or wide enough to be an intermediate, but it's definitely not a short track. And it just creates a lot of interesting racing around here, a lot of different techniques, and I'm very curious to see what these drivers set their tools at throughout the race. Their tools essentially are their roll bars and their weight jacker, and that allows them to determine how understeery, how oversteery, how tight, how loose they want the car to be in the corners.
Conditions are going to change rapidly, and that's going to require some adaptability. Drivers just finishing their qualifying laps right now, 5 seconds to go, and only a few more to make it around the track. Fewer have made it this week to a track on the US server farm this time around, so we're hoping this time cars can be kept a little bit more to themselves. But in order to find out, we're going to have to hit the grid, and 24 cars await us. So as they get ready to line up, we're going to be able to get down with that starting grid any time soon, where a few new drivers and a few positions that I don't usually expect on the road. So just making sure that's ready to get loaded up, and then we are getting ready to load it in. It's Matthias Strauss in P1 next to Julian Altena in P2 on the front row. Nicholas Prezi sits in the P3. Trying to work out what's going on with the graphics. It's Matthias Strauss, Liam O'Sullivan, Julian Altena, and Kyle Gresh. And that ain't going to work for us today. But you know what? We did our best, and I can show to the world that happened. Dan Ench sits in P5 into Brian Fiolas in P7. Katie Polak lines up in 8 with Roden Eftig in 9th and Kyle Clenworth in 10th. I'll get the live timing ready for you, and I'll give you a couple more positions so you can load in on that one, Lucas. Edmund Santos is in P11 with Bryce Saucier in 12th, with Jaco Seegers in 13th and John Christensen in 14th. You got the rest?
I do, yes. In 15th will be Anthony Heitzma. 16th, Senna Balkovin. In 17th is Marcos Teixeira. Then just behind him in 18th is Andres Vinche, Pim van Gastel. And then rounding out your top 20 is Shane Koshin. Your last 4 cars on the grid will be Timothy Bray, Kostek Solowaj, Gary Lovern, and Sebastian Dufresne.
Few drivers with qualifying bans at the back of the grid. Gary Lovern, most notably, after driving a damaged car, got sent to the back and banned from qualifying, but a fast driver and one with a lot of history in the series as well. Altena has typically started near the front of grid so far this season. He hasn't really been able to get the results he's wanted so far, though, with car contact getting in his way. Kyle Clenworth only in 10th is a very big surprise to me. He comes across to me as one of the favourites, especially on the high banks of Homestead, proving his success. And only contact taking him out of New Hampshire. He didn't quite get the times he was looking for on the track. Pace cars getting ready to run off. How do you think Lucas drivers are going to be taking to this track? Because it is going to be a fast dash out of the gate.
I think with these fuel stints limited to just under 50 laps, these drivers most likely won't try to save fuel. There's just not enough in it to try to push for that 5-stop, I believe it is, because, you know, this is a very long 225-lap race. So since there's no reason to save fuel, there's no reason to save tires either. And of course, there's not no reason to save tires, but the reason is it's very limited if it was a fuel-saving race. So since these stints are shorter, I expect a lot more aggression from these drivers is kind of the point I'm trying to make here.
Anything can happen on the track here on VOR. We've seen that already. There's been chaos and strife that has hit at all stages in time, and setting them to another high-speed paradise sounds like a great way to get pretty much anything we want out of them. One to green this time round, and one of the larger tracks of the pace car getting ready to pull in any time soon, and we're going to have the launch on the go. Matthias Strauss lines up on the inside in 28 car. Liam O'Sullivan alongside in the 12. But it's going to be a real jump to that bottom, and it's in control of the flag man, and we are green. Already a few movements out there around the back, and a few black flags given out as well on the start of front row, getting away quite cleanly. Julian Altena diving to the inside. That top line has not had the pace out of the gate.
Yeah, but now we might expect that top line to get some run out of those corners down the straight. And just you see, I believe it's Liam O'Sullivan on the outside. He might just be able to get past Julian Altena here, but Altena able to stick it in. They're still fighting side by side. They're 2 wide, multiple rows back here.
They went backwards 4 wide between these 3 drivers. That's Senna Buckhoven and Eston Santos running 4 down these straights. Matthias Strauss running away with it right now, but it's a tangle 2 rows back. Altena, Sullivan, Pressy, and Kyle Gresh. New to the league, been signed up for some time, been waiting for him to make his drop. Let me put it like that. Here's your updated timing on the side of your screen. And Matthias Strauss run away 7 tenths already, absolutely dominating out front. Altena's been able to hold off the pack. This is a track where you really can use that dirty air to your advantage. But we're seeing drivers take different lines rather than get pinned to the bottom like we've seen in the fixed racing earlier this season.
Yeah, now that Julian Altena is clear of O'Sullivan, his goal is to now close that gap to Strauss. And you said it, that gap now 7/10 that built because of the fight between Altena and O'Sullivan. Matthias Strauss was just able to keep building and building that gap as we have that pink car going really wide there.
That's Brian Fiola's making his comeback to the league after last week and firing his way up. Trust me, Lucas, you'll get to recognize Fiola's car from a million miles away. It's striking in pink, and he's running side by side on the top of Robin Eftink on the bottom. Little bit close to the wall may have slowed him down, but he's enjoying holding that top line. Not a single foul running up ahead. Kyle Gresh just behind, a two-wide pass from E3. That's Liam O'Sullivan and Nicholas Prezi. Prezi ahead, washes up hard on exit to get in Liam O'Sullivan's way, and that's going to give him the chance to jump back down again. 225 laps when they're green, they fly by around here. We're still two ride for two roads.
Yeah, and that rookie-on-rookie battle for P6 is not just over yet. That championship leader, Eftink, he wants that 6th position back, and he is fighting Fiolus very hard for it. Just can't pull off the slide job there. They're going to get really close on exit. And these cars on exit, if you don't have your tools set right, they really tend to understeer and slide up to that outside wall. It is very sketchy going too wide, especially on elbow tires.
There were practice races earlier on in the week for this setup, but it is a bit of an unknown element. Lower downforce. You're going to see a few slides out the car, some people that weren't prepared. Possibly free wide here, looking on board with Dan Etch. That's Jaco Seegers on the bottom line. Seems to have the run coming out, and the bottom is fast, but the top isn't. Completely unviable. That's a slide out from Jaco Seegers, and that's our first caution. Caught live on camera. The low downforce has bitten for the first time this race.
Yeah, you talked about it, just loses the rears mid-corner, especially when you have a car in front, you have cars on your side. The dirty air from all around just really caused a lack of downforce. Sorry, he didn't have any cars on his side, but he had one up top, one in front. And let's take a look at this. So yeah, coming down to turn 1, they just passed that start-finish line. He's going to be on the inside. This is Jaco Seegers, and that blue 99 car, it just sent it in a little too hard and just can't keep the speed throughout the entire corner. So, yeah, rough day for him so far.
Dan Etch collected with a meatball flag. Jaco Seegers with a meatball flag. John Christensen with a meatball flag. Very often in these iRacing Indy cars, if you take too much damage just once, you could be out of it for good. The pit crew aren't actually as good at repairing it as you'd imagine. But Julian Altena, you saw it on the timing. I wasn't able to draw much attention to it. Was catching up quite closely to Matthias Strauss. And Strauss did run away about 8 tenths, and it was closed into 2 tenths by the end of that. If we can get the gap over the last 3 laps, probably get Altena's gaps over the last 3. You see how it went from 6.8 to 1.19, just the span of a lap, and that was pre-caution. So Altena was getting ready to hook up a pass well before the caution forced his hand. A few drivers taking the pit road, by the way. I guess it's Kyle Gresh seems to be jumping in alongside Klendworth, Saucier, Ench, Loven, Van Gastel, Heitzmer, Shane Kosher, and Dufresne as well. I think Dufresne may have taken damage, so don't know if we will be seeing him back out on the track. He has made it back out. There wasn't a meatball, but that's a few drivers that have stopped early, including some that weren't involved in that wreck. Gresh, the leader here of drivers that just decided to take an early stop and split this strategy in a very different sort of way.
Yeah, and that closing gap that you talked about between Altena and Strauss, that tells me one of 3 things. I can take you through the 3 things I think happened. So 1, Strauss could have made a mistake, and that's why we saw that dramatic 4 tenths gap closure. If you make a mistake on a lap, and that really will drop that gap down. 2, could be Altena, like you were probably implying, Altena might just have more pace than Matthias Strauss earlier on in the stint. So maybe Strauss is saving, Altena is pushing, and he was able to gain like that. Or it can go back to that setup we were talking about. Maybe with this setup, if you're still able to stay within that 1 second, keep that draft, you're able to pull in quite easily to about 2 or 3 tenths before that dirty air kicks in. So even if you don't have more pace in the car in front, just that draft is able to pull you back to the car ahead of you.
And we're going to see over the course of quite a long race down the line, it will be an hour and a half of green flag racing if it didn't go yellow at any point. Just quite which one of those factors is going to become true. A lot of speculation very, very early on in our first run, of course, but these are slowly going to add up, and we're slowly going to build an understanding of how this track is best dominated in the setup and in these conditions. It's a cool track, but the pack was able to spread out a little bit more than I noticed in practice out there on the track, and that leaves me just a little bit confident we're going to be seeing some fantastic racing down the line, of course. Biggest mover of that first caution was Senna Bokhoven. Started, I've no doubt said that wrong, and I'm as sorry as everybody else. It's one of my guilty crimes. Started P16, climbed up to 11th on the road. Hopefully can keep that car's composure together. Remember, this league, we start on green in single file. You can pass wherever you want. It looks like we're getting ready to make that start as soon as the green flag flies. Not quite single file, few rows back, and that's going to cause a mass confusion. That's Timothy Bray spinning down to the bottom of the track. A little bit of damage caused to some further back too, but the rest keep running. Altena, Presti, Sullivan, and Fiolis make up your top five, and we're side by side already. Looks like Altena's going to want to make this move for the lead. Too wide for 2 rows, and Altena has the confidence this time to push it all the way up to the top of the track. Matthias Strauss, he stays in it though. There's momentum on that race.
Yeah, look how much room Altena is leaving Strauss on these exit in the middle of the corner. He actually gets the slide job done there and makes that pass for the lead. But you saw these drivers with all the netcode issues that happened 2 weeks ago. They don't want to risk anything. They don't want to lose the entire race lap 13 because of some dumb netcode issue that they got too close to each other. So you saw the gaps that they're giving each other on corner exit are very, very wide, and I think that's very smart decisions from these drivers.
It's a cliche to talk about dirty air in IndyCar, I'll tell you that, but it is a real factor when you want to get in front of someone and cut off that air. Here comes Strauss, run down the back straight, and that back straight is leading some great slipstream runs. We're going to be seeing more of those as the race develops, but that's just one example of quite the slipstream you can get even with this lower downforce. I see Fiolis back there, potentially looking to try and become a part of that. Liam O'Sullivan sits in 5th. Roden F. Tink is the next one further back, and we have a little bit of 2 wide further back. It's Andreas Vinche and Kyle Gresh. First one that stopped. I doubt there's that much of a tire delta in these cars, but it's probably a long-term fuel gain. Driver 16 laps into a long race ahead, and Strauss wants to run away with that lead. Tressy running a different line. I wonder if that line is going to change his game plan running down this straight.
Yeah, the reason you would pit would be for fuel. You're correct on that. Essentially, what you're trying to do is you're extending your fuel window by another 12 laps. So it's another 12 laps you can hope to pit under a caution that if people didn't pit earlier, they didn't take that free fuel stop, they would have to pit earlier. And if a caution comes out in that 12-lap window, the people that pit are essentially screwed, and the people that did take the pit earlier in the race, since they were able to extend, they pit under caution, and they can really help the race out by doing that.
Saucier and Gresh still fighting side by side, and Vinche is able to run away with this, but Anthony Heitzmer as well, looking to try and aim up the high side. Look for Gresh in the black and green. I've seen that nickname on the side of the car in plenty of other leagues, but I will dare not say it quite out loud. Now being slowed down by Heitzman, a little bit of side draft possibly playing into effect, and Kyle Clenworth, he's only gone backwards since the start. Started 10th, now 15th on the road. Did take that pit stop indeed, but he's lower in the group of drivers that took the stop. He's hoping maybe he can just play a long game here and not think too much about the sprint right now. Drivers that be thinking too much about the short-term sprint probably have been running into the biggest problems in VOR, whereas very often just being alive and being a part of that strategy game gets you the win. Looking back at this battle between Fiolis and Presti, and Fiolis looking to just try and find a line that will make him happy. Now trying up top.
Yeah, it's very hard to pass in the pack, but he's going to descend the elevator there. Look to the inside now of Presti. It's another rookie-on-rookie fight for the podium here. Fiolis sends it in, not able to get clear before they exit the corner. And now out of turn 4, down the front stretch, they're still going to be side by side.
Fiolis, a rookie to the VOR series, but you may recognize the name on the channel. Brian Fiolis has raced in the Global IndyCar Challenge. and can't make it to too many of these weeks around here. He claims that P3. I believe he's taking over the league next season, which will remain on Green Flag TV, especially if great for the road racers in the IndyCar fair. Keep an eye on that one later on in the year. Further down the line, Nicholas Prezi is dropping and dropping. Kostek Solowez this time. Going to try and take advantage of what seems to be a bit of a dulling in pace in that 94 car. Side by side down the back straight. Not quite fast enough, but all I'm seeing in the body language of this Prezi car is a little bit of just giving up and a little bit of just slowing down right now. And I think Solowez might just be able to make the same move that Violas was able to make a couple laps ago. Seeing it happen is going to make him more enthusiastic, and all it's going to take is one good exit and a good run down this straight.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Now we get into the mental game, and someone who's been in this position of falling through the pack many times. I kind of know what Prezi's thinking. You know, you lose one position and you're thinking, do I have the pace? You know, am I quick enough to be here? You know, why am I making mistakes? I can't fall back anymore. And all these negative emotions you feel, you wouldn't think they affect your driving, but they really do. So what Prezi has to do here, he has to block out all that thought. He has to block out the thoughts. He has to block out those negative emotions, and he just has to be confident in his driving and be confident that he can keep behind Solowaj and stay in this race to fight for some more podiums.
This stream becoming a bit of an apology tour. It's Pim Van Gastel that will be responsible for Global IndyCar Challenge, but I certainly didn't get the fact that it's coming here incorrect. Katie Polak having a good run up here in P6, and Liam O'Sullivan being hounded by F-Tink, who's going to take it to the bottom and try and take that P7 and now chase down Katie down the road. Will F-Tink be able to get the nose in place? Moves up the road to sort of preemptively block, and that's not really going to work. Liam O'Sullivan is fast. He's on the bottom. He's able to clear out. That's actually Senna Bokhoven who's able to clear out two drivers. These things move so fast, in my view, let me tell you that. Almost free wide again is Bokhoven in the 74. Liam O'Sullivan actually gets left out to dry in it all, but it's a second down the road to Katie Polak now, who you can just see her how big the gap to her and the rest of the pack up ahead is. Further down as well, that's Prezi and Solowez going side by side. Solowez is ahead on the mid-corner. We might be able to get a closer view of that because we're still chasing here at Nashville.
Yeah, and now that I see this, Julian Altsina, who, correct me if I'm wrong, Howie, was in the lead. I feel like he took the lead on that restart. He's dropped down to 4th place now. So either he pushed out his tires way too much, you know, got them overheated, burnt them out a little bit, or now he's maybe starting to save. That wouldn't make too much sense. So I think that Julian Altsina might have pushed his tires out just a bit too much as he's falling through the pack. I think he's now in 5th place.
Want to keep an eye on quite how this happened because that is quite the drop off the face of the planet. Violas gets the jump. Altsina running very high. And is that just going to give more drivers the opportunity to take it inside? I think he is dropping off a bit. Indeed, in terms of pace, just a very close contested battle. But Altsina's just running high and running away a little bit. Nicholas Prezi in that 94 got overtaken by Solowaj on the outside here, and Altsina was taken by both as we were being brought into the replay. You can see that there's so, as you mentioned earlier, so many viable lines here today, but here's how one of those draft passes gets done. That's Kostek Solowaj passing Altsina, and that is indeed what dropping like a rock looks like on the track. Now Violas is in a chase for P2. He won. Make it.
Yeah, you're a driver to watch out for, Howie. Brian Fiolis is absolutely delivering. You know, you talk about that bright pink car. Reminds me of the Sakura kind of Japanese color theme. It is absolutely vibrant, and it shows up on that track very nicely. And he is now chasing down that 28 car of Matthias Strauss, who has been leading a lot of this race. He's not uncomfortable to this position he's gotten right now, so I will expect for him to put on a pretty decent battle, even though we're only 30 laps in.
And talk about the biggest move. Kostek Solowaj started all the way near the back and has made absolutely no issue pushing his way up to the front. I see some people describe Nashville as a track where you can burn the right front and worry a little bit about it later, especially in a race with so many anticipated pit stops. It's going to vary a lot because obviously this track surface, we do have concrete all over it. It's abrasive inherently, but the temperature's less abrasive to the cars than usual. Obviously pushing your way up that far is going to just be intensive on a level that is going to slow you down in the long run, but if you could make it up from 22 and then stay in the top 5, that's probably a fantastic day for you. Who else started near the back that hasn't quite been able to get that result done? I mean, Gary Lovin started on the back for qualifying, but he's been able to make it up 11, that's 9 places to P14. Kyle Klendworth down 3 though. Obviously, we're not going to see the strategy for those early stoppers really work until the long run of the race. Further down the grid as well is Roden F-Tank, Senna Buckhoven having a little bit of lag in and out over the course of this race, and that can distract you when running in traffic. It's very hard to get around and to pass somebody in these conditions, and I hope it doesn't lead to a horrible incident. Whereas Katie Polak now is the next challenger to Altona's throne. Polak, she's been sitting fairly consistently here in 6th, but with the way Altona just sort of dropped pace quite a bit over the last few laps, maybe Katie's next in line to take that.
Yeah, and I want to rewind a little bit to when you talked about the temperature. Oh, and Katie Polak's around!
That is the broadcaster's commentator's curse, indeed. Katie Polak slides, loses grip. Not the first driver to do it off the track, but because we're in the grass, we stay green. We'll get replays of that next chance there's an opportunity, but that felt pretty unfortunate. I'm not going to blame any individual for that, but that felt pretty like a pretty unpleasant sight to witness as we were queuing her up. She had such incredible potential this race, and just that quickly it gets squandered. The promises of the pack race, they were considering remaking this lobby to increase the temperatures. It didn't happen, and we haven't had a pack race. We've had some serious spreading out of drivers. This top 5 are now glued, but everybody else is keeping it to themselves, and now you can talk about the next person I put the camera on to talk about how the setup might be making people spin. Just don't cause a catastrophe, Lucas.
Yeah, this is... I'll speak very carefully here, and it's funny, as a stream full of apologies, I think us from Green Flag TV owe an apology there to Katie Polak, sorry, but on a more serious note, you talked about the temperature of this track helping with the tire wear, and not only do we have to think about the temperature, but this setup we've mentioned so many times before has the lower downforce, and if there's less downforce, those tires just aren't going to be carrying the same amount of speed. They're literally going to be slower, which will also cause less tire wear overall. So this is not going to be a tire-saving race. So drivers like Solo Wide that have made their way through the field should be pretty okay to do so and push out their tires early on.
Track temperature 34 degrees Celsius, make that 93 Fahrenheit. I wouldn't call it Arctic, but I wouldn't call it as hot as Nashville can get. The hot sun of this place can be absolutely dominant, but of this sort of temperature you sometimes get during a night race under the lights, you certainly can get hotter under the Nashville, Tennessee sun. Top 4, running pretty much alone, Senna Buckhoven. Still holding off Roden F-Tank very well, but that gap, it's 1.8 seconds, and F-Tank wants to make this pass, but it's really not easy trying to get up and around someone who you don't know where they're going to be on the track. I mean, that's probably what's checking up this entire line, in fact. Just sitting up next to a car and thinking, can I get him? Can I get him? Try and make a move, and they disappear, and you have to guess. Here's Roden F-Tank. Finally gets it done, says I've had enough of that and I've got a pack to chase down. Little bit loose and low on the exit. Senna isn't completely out of the ability to chase this down, but now it's on Liam O'Sullivan. Aiden Santos is also in this line alongside Bryce Saucier and Cole Clemworth back up to P10 where we started.
I don't mean to concern you, Howie. Julian Altona is 3 laps down. He disappeared off the face of the planet. I don't know where he went.
I'm trying to work it out as well. I think there were connection issues behind that. There's no event in my log whatsoever about the disappearance of Altona. There's no evidence other than a car that just isn't there. That is a potential network issue that's just dropped Altona completely out of the top pack. No wonder we all missed it. And everybody gets graduated +1 as a result of that. Here's some intense racing for this battle for 5th and 6th. 4 cars together, Roden F-Tank leads the way. And at this point, it's anybody's game whatsoever. O'Sullivan doesn't quite make the duck to the bottom. That's Endon Santos that almost thought about doing it before giving it up. Bryce Saucier runs high. And there's an intense battle up front. There's an intense battle further behind up the road. Brian Fiolis also challenging Strauss, who's very, very, very carefully held drivers off up to this point. Solowej also in with that chase, but Pressy, I just think, a little bit off. I don't really know where to look. I don't even really know what's more intense, but I can tell you that these drivers are running close and getting away with it like we've not seen before in this series so far.
Yeah, and what Eveting has to keep in mind, he is the championship leader. He does not want to be fighting, or he is not, sorry, want to crash out fighting for 5th place with 47 laps into the race. So he really needs to make sure that if he's going against a driver that's very aggressive, driving him very, very hard, he does not want to get caught up in that. He might just have to forfeit the place. Think of the long game. Think of the championship standings. You really want to play it strategically. You can't be crashing out for 5th fighting really aggressive drivers. So if O'Sullivan goes for a move here, and if it's a risky move, if it's a dive bomb, I wouldn't want to fight on the exit. I would just forfeit the position and try to keep as many points as I can. Because right now you're kind of hoping for a caution that can bring you back up to those 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th places. But right now you really just want to stay in the race.
My calculated theory on whether or not the laggy driver up ahead was slowing down the pack has been proven horrifically wrong. Roden F-Tink started 2 seconds down, now 3.6 seconds down. It's on raw pace that F-Tink is just not making it up. But this battle behind is absolutely electric. Violas has been stuck to the back of Strauss for a while, but I really don't know what's going to happen among these drivers. On the top side, that's Senna Buckhoven. Been waiting for an opportunity to try and get into this. Bryce Saucier watching from behind as well. Kyle Clenworth maybe just biding his time in a very big dirty airfield. That's Senna in the 74 stuck behind Santos, who cut up right in the way. Bryce Saucier almost sticks his nose into the bottom. He does. He gets the space. These positions are trading non-stop up and down this little pack, and with the way the leader of this race right now is getting away, we're not seeing much else. Drivers lining up for their first pit stops. It's Matthias Strauss entering the pit lane now. He's going to be our first green flag stopper of the race.
Yeah, and of course it will be Strauss. You know, he has been the leader of this race. He has never had time to fuel save or someone in front of him that he could draft off of and, you know, maybe take a little less aggressive corner entry. He has just been in front. No draft, no way to save fuel at all. Because of that, he burnt out his fuel the quickest. He will be the first to pit, which will give him a little bit of an undercut. But, you know, if a caution comes out in these next 2 or 3 laps, he could be severely in severe trouble, or just later on in the race. You know, he's essentially lost himself a 2 to 3 lap gap that these other drivers now have on him. So the price for being in first is really being shown here.
Next down the lane, it was, as you caught, Brian Fiolis setting himself a lap down in the pit lane. But this is about the stint length for these cars, give or take around 50 laps. So more and more drivers going to start to filter in over time. Pressy and Solowej have been fighting to be the first one into that lane when they both jump in. And it's a very good point to be made on the fuel saving. You save a lot behind other drivers. Roden F-Tink now entering. Of course, you enter pit road through turn 3 on the Indycar layout. So you'll see drivers dropping all the way down the pack just before they make their pit road entry. That's Roden F-Tink now in. It leaves 2 up top that are fighting for the opportunity to be the first at the end of the cycle being completed. More drivers making a dip now. I believe Leon O'Sullivan looks to be coming down the lane. Aiden Santos, Senna Buckhoven, and Gary Lovin. Still green out there on the track, actually. This is actually graduates Kyle Clenworth all the way up to P3, and we're going to see this top 2 jump into the lane soon. And then there's an interesting game about how Kyle Clenworth and Bryce Saucier, who made that pit stop earlier, how long they can hold out and how this affects their prognosis into the race, because you've been talking about cautions. If the time is right, they profit and they're back on top.
Yeah, and looking at it, everybody from 3rd to 12th, now 3rd to 11th, as someone has just pit, they are all drivers who had pit on that lap 10, as here we now see Pressy and Solowaj coming down pit road, making that pit stop. So now, first, all the way back to, it's going to be 9th. From Kyle Clenworth all the way to Pim van Gestel, those are people who took that pit stop on lap 10 and can go another probably I'll say 5 to 9 laps here, depending on how much they're able to save in the draft. So these drivers will be in prime position if a caution comes out in these next 5 to 9 laps.
It's really going to be now a game of quite how long they can hold on, and Bryce Saucier wants to make that move for the prospective lead coming out of the cycle. Clenworth just gives it up, jumps up to the top, isn't quite gonna go for it on the bottom either. Here he comes, almost dips his nose out but doesn't quite get it. We're on board with Kyle Clenworth right now as you hit almost 200 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour plus down the back straight in draft. We'll see how he tackles his way around. A little bit of slide. Oh, a little bit of slide from Bryce Saucier's car up ahead, and that's going to kill his momentum just a little. Kyle not quite able to get the full draft yet, but maybe he'd just quite like to sit here. That's another possibility. It's a very, very long race. And Lucas, with the way they stopped, I know you've alluded to this earlier, do you necessarily think that these drivers might be able to save a pit stop from their strategy, or did they stop way too early to make that work?
I don't think that they could necessarily save a pit stop. I think that they'll probably still have to pit 4 times. But since one of those pits did come under caution, it's going to be interesting how it works out in the end of the race. And I'm really curious to see how it does play out. I love these long green flag strategy type races just because you never know how things are going to play out. You can always predict and speculate, but you never 100% certain know what's going to happen. It'll be very hard to turn this into a 3-stop race just because of how the fuel works, and saving is very difficult. But if you make it a 4-stop race with one of your pits being under caution, you can save some time. I think we're still too far out to call anything yet, but it probably will help in the long run, especially because when we were on board with Clenworth, you saw it, he was not on throttle for a lot of the middle of the corner. So essentially he's lifting in, coasting out throughout the corner, probably even holding the clutch if he has to, and essentially just using Saucier to save fuel. So Clenworth is going to be able to extend even longer than these other drivers that pit on lap 10.
Catching up with a few of the drivers and a bit of a mysterious incident from earlier on in the race, of course. Julian Alton is back on the track, but he laments his bad luck in the YouTube chat. The power cut out for 10 seconds, and that's why we didn't quite see where he went. More drivers dropping into pit lane now. Here's Shane Kosher and Gary Lovin. These were 2 drivers that did make their stop earlier, so now we're in the window of drivers that made that earlier stop having to do it now. They've not benefited. Saucier and Clenworth are going to have to run all the way until the tank is empty to try and get anything out of this. Might even be running in low fuel maps just to try and suspend this run. But this race hasn't entered a stage of back-to-back caution and back-to-back calamity that you sometimes get around here. And this means that the cautions can sometimes be just freak accidents. And there will be freak accidents. I'd like to possibly think so, given the slides and the spin-outs we're seeing from 2 drivers on the track already that have retired. But at the same time, we've not really seen it kick off since the beginning. Kyle Clenworth in the pits now. Bryce Saucier probably only has 1 or 2 more laps in the tank. I bet we'll be seeing him make the move. Actually, that car is... You might not be able to hear it, Lucas, but that car, I think, is out of fuel now. He's going to crawl it into that pit box, but it is sputtering. He has absolutely pushed this to the limit. He's got no throttle entering pit road. Oh, please do not miss your box to running out of fuel, Bryce. He's barely going to make it, but this is not good for his timing on the race. He's so far off pit road speed limit. He's getting passed by, that's Kyle Gresh, passing him in the lane. Oh, talk about fuel calculation gone wrong here. He's going to make it in and out of the box, but the actual effect on his race as a result of that, as you tease, that's going to be devastating.
It's going to be probably 15 seconds of real race time loss. That's just an estimate I put out there, which is a huge amount of time, like absolutely astronomical. That's the gap from 1st to 16th. So that is essentially, unfortunately for him, going to ruin his race. Might even put him a lap down as well. But you talk about these freak accidents, Howie. one way that those happen a lot is pitting. Entering pit road is very difficult, especially when you have to go on the apron in turn 3, and exiting on cold tires. You know, when you're used to a car with so much grip and warm tires that have been driven on up to temperature and, you know, that give you the full grip you want, when you're exiting a very flat and bumpy pit road with cold tires, accidents and spinouts can occur a lot of times, especially because at least in the leagues I come from, people don't often practice their pit entries and exits. It's sometimes overlooked because in these more chaotic leagues, a lot of the time you're doing under caution, so there's no reason to actually practice them. So talk about those freak accidents. A lot of those can happen while drivers are pitting.
You may be even less inclined to actually practice a pit entry in an IndyCar because you think, I've got a pit lane speed limiter, so hey, I can't speed going in. Think about a stock car. Julian hates it whenever we mention stock cars on the show. Make it 3 out of 3 weeks. Talk about a stock car where you have to get it under speed with terrible brakes and then keep it there. So people think, oh, I don't have to practice it, I have a speed limiter. But if you make 4 stops and you suck at hitting speed limit, yeah, you're not getting black flags for it, but you probably lose positions over the course of the race. It's just as important to get that right. And it's such a factor for the Indy 500, for instance, which we'll be covering later this season, where it is a pit race, the Indy 500. I've won an iRacing Indy 500, and on the track, it's often just about when and where you pit. As long as you're in the right place at the right time, it can even out in the long run. And that's an example of maybe not a failed pit entry, but more of like a strategy that the lap before had just not just spiraled out of control. Down the back straight, he was running out of fuel and sputtering. So at that point, you sort of can't fix the situation, but he decided to gamble by staying out a lap further than Clenworth. And where's he gone now? Kyle Clenworth in P8. And other Saucier out in 16th.
Yeah, so my prediction of 15 seconds was kind of close. It seemed to be around a 10-second loss that he has from Clenworth now. So my random estimate I threw out there was kind of close, kind of far. I'll take it for just being completely random and absolute guess. But yeah, you mentioned it, practicing your pit stops. That can save you about 2 to 3 seconds if you can really, really nail that. And also, noticing the gap from Fiolis to Strauss. We talked about Strauss having to pit a lot earlier than a lot of these other drivers, effectively putting him on an undercut strategy. Well, that undercut strategy that I didn't like too much did get him a 2-second gap to the car in second place. So even though he's going to have less fuel throughout the stint and worse tires throughout the stint, that built him a huge, huge gap right at the start of this the second stint.
This has been one of our longest and best green flag runs of the VOR season. I have a few jobs in the VOR paddock, and one of them involves writing penalty documents. And I do quite appreciate having a little bit less work to do. Not to tempt fate or anything, there's an hour of green flag racing to go and plenty of pit stops worth of racing down the line as well. But it's been very good so far, and this has been sort of a long run, multi-stop Indy racing that VR has been trying to build up to for quite some time. Kostek Solowesz started 22nd, still sitting in that P4 position, by far one of the most successful drivers of this race. Andreas Vince, though, or Vince, as I've been told, I keep saying too much on the E, started up in 18th, he's made it all the way up to P6 right now on the run. Roden Efting down at 1 since the start, and Shane Koshier up 9. But for every driver that's gone up a little bit, such as Sebastian Dufrenzy, there are some that have really, really dropped down the road. Julian Altena, obviously our key example, although maybe a slightly unfair call. He's got 8 laps to make up to the leader. Doubt that will happen, but there may still be points in surviving out here on the track.
Okay, and I have done some math here, Howie, to get a look at this B strategy, those people that pit all the way back on lap 10. So what it looks like is if you're saving, as we saw Roden Eftink was doing, Kyle Clenworth. I'm confusing my drivers. That's on me. Kyle Clenworth was saving, I believe he went about 55 laps on that set of fuel. 55 times, that's going to be 3, is 165. And if you do the math, that means as long as they pit on lap 60, they can theoretically do it in 3 more stints, aka just 2 more stops. And everybody else who's only pit 1 time they have a guaranteed 3 more stops in the race, while these people that pit on lap 10 might only have 2 more stops left. So that could be really interesting to see how that plays out. Now that I had time to sit down, I do think that that B strategy might really come into effect if this race stays green.
I'm glad you're doing the maths and not me. If you keep that notepad and pen well and truly close, because it really could end up playing a factor. Here's a bit of a pack race. Staying kosher, lining up in P9. Senna Bokoven in 10th with Marcos de Serra, Timothy Bray and Roden F. Tink, along with Sebastian De Frenzy. So this is a much bigger pack than last time. Up front, though, just as I look at that, Brian Fiolas makes the move for the lead. Let's try and catch the replay of that one before it gets lost. Brian Fiolas here, finally been trying to get the run, and it's a bad corner exit here from Matthias Strauss. Runs it up high. That's sort of what cost Altona a lot of time earlier in the race as well. And that makes it a fairly easy run. He's already 3 temps down the road. Tell you what, doing 2 jobs at once on VOR, it is tiring and stressful, but I got my head in the game, much like these drivers have to around here. Free running 2 wide here with Senna and Sebastian, as they separated a little bit from the drivers in P11.
Yeah, and just looking at it, Fiolas made that pass look very easy and now pulled a great gap onto Strauss. And you know, we talk about Strauss had to pit early. He only has 1 lap older tires than Fiolas, which really shouldn't have that big of an effect on pace in general. So my guess is that Matthias Strauss just pushed out his tires a little bit too much, trying to build a gap. Ryan Fiolas, you know, he saw that. He played it back, played safer, more conservative. And now that we're approaching the end of this stint, you know, lap 30 for these guys, lap 33, 34, Fiolas was able to make do of those better tires and get the pass done for the lead.
Shane Kosher 6 seconds back, but this battle is as tight as it can be. Marcos de Serra, a driver we've not seen a terrible amount of this race, but running in P10, climbed his way up from 17th and trying to get around that green VOR car while trying to battle Timothy Bray on the high side as well. Lots of little 2 wide scraps happening in their own individual packs. This race really has strung out in a way that has been exciting, and I see those little nervous twitches of cars on the exits of corners, and I keep thinking one of these could end badly one day, but it's an absolute testament that right now we're still keeping this very green. On board with Shane Kosher. And up on the inside, that's Timothy Bray. Keeping in alongside. Side by side down the straight.
Yeah, and you mentioned those nervous little twitches. What a lot of these drivers will be doing is running very aggressive tools. You know, having that weight jacker and those roll bars set to very oversteering. So what that does, it gives you a lot of turn-in into the corner, a lot of good turn-in in the middle of the corner. But you lose some stability, you lose some confidence in your rear end, and that's where you'll see little drivers start to twitch, start to, you know, have to wriggle at that wheel on the exit. But running aggressive roll bars like that is really one of the only ways to keep good pace, as that's a huge run he gets and gets that slide job done. And Timothy Bray goes up to 9th place.
It's run, aero block around here. That seems to be the game of racing. Shane Kosher backs off, entering turn 1, trying to get the legendary run down the back straight. He's approaching in 1/10. Not alongside on the bottom of the track. Plenty of packs running just like this all around the track. Here's Kostek, Shonowedge, Liam O'Sullivan further ahead with Nicholas Frezzi up behind. No bit of single file running, but you always get the feeling that these battles could sort of blow up at any moment on the road, and one bad exit is giving people serious momentum on the track. Spectacular green flag run for this race so far. We continue running cleanly on the track, only 1 yellow and 1 more incident that washed all the way into the grass very rapidly, keeping it away from the caution. Is going to start letting this fuel strategy get interesting, but also get maddening for me. I'm very glad I have you by my side to keep track of the excesses of it as we roll further and closer to our second stop. 40 laps on the longest stint on the track.
Yeah, and we talk about these green flags. we still have 20 racers left in this race. I remember 2 weeks ago and even the race before that, I think we lost just about half of the field in each of those races. So the fact that we still have 20 out of the 24 cars remaining shows that these drivers know they've really locked in, they've cleaned it up. And as I say that, we get a caution because I jinxed it, of course.
Yeah, maybe at this point we should just stop talking about it. But if I'm not wrong, Bryce Saucier may have just thrown a yellow without a major wreck. Let's keep an eye on him. I think he's the car that was responsible for this. It might have just been a self-slow, a self-spin. I don't think that's contact. He's sideways. That throws the yellow. He's able to collect the car again without major contact. And so you weren't wrong. Every car has stayed in the race as a result of that yellow. Bit of an unusual run, but that setup, biting drivers again, it adds such a cool dynamic to this race. I am loving it to bits. But most importantly, this is a hard reset on the pit strategy here, as almost every driver now, 30 to 40 laps into their stint, they're all going to be making the jump at once.
Yeah, you said it. You know, we have people like Matthias Strauss, 43 laps into their stint. You have people like Kyle Clenworth, only 28 laps into their stint, but all of that will be a race here. This is almost assuredly a pit stop for everybody, no matter where in the stint you are, which will level the playing field, reset that 165 number I said a while back. It'll reset all of that, and I'm gonna need some more time to calculate the numbers to give an estimate on how many pit stops I think are going to be left in the race. But now it is an even playing field on fuel. That's kind of gone out the window. So now I think these drivers are really going to start pushing.
Drivers, however, who were later in the run are going to have better jumps out of the pits, and Brian Fiolas proves it with the first out of line with Liam O'Sullivan jumping Strauss into P2. Kostic Solowich comes out P4. And why has Sullivan jumped ahead of Fiolas exiting the pits? I think Fiolas has an end-of-line penalty. I think Fiolas may have made a mistake entering or exiting that box. I'm trying to study. Fiolas does have an end-of-line penalty. Several end-of-lines. Andreas Vince, Roden Eftink. I think they might have entered... Either they entered pit road a bit early or they all sped on the way out. I can try and get on board and we could see if there's a mistake by Fiolas. It could have been also unsafe exit if so many drivers were hit by this. I'm a little bit confused, but we'll try and get to the bottom of this one. As Brian Fiolas is on board as he exits this pit box. That's clean.
See? I don't think he sped up too quickly. I mean, he still seems... I was trying to look, see if I can see the yellow bar. There's a yellow bar, I believe, that'll show up when you actually are in your pit's limiter, but I don't think that we are able to get to see that on the replay, unfortunately. It's just kind of a fake dashboard. We don't get to actually see the full dashboard, but that did look clean.
Trying to capture his entry.
He's already under speed. Oh, I know what it is. I think I know what it is. The car that's right behind the pace car. I couldn't see who it was. They all passed him under yellow. So essentially what happens is if there's a car that stays out and people accidentally pass him and they hit the commitment line before that car that stayed on track did, all of the cars that passed him will get an EOL black flag for passing a car under caution.
Good insight there on the race control code. That's Brian Fiolas, Roden Eftink, and Andres Vince. Talk about a turn-up for the ages of the grid. It's Liam O'Sullivan that's going to lead this second run over Matthias Strauss. Multiple drivers sent all the way to the back, and we go green on the restart. You can see Fiolas in the background already trying to make up every position left in the book. Good run away from Liam O'Sullivan. Solowich now running up in P3 as we have the legendary run down the back straight. Little move up the track for O'Sullivan, tries to cover off Strauss. Now he's up high, Pressy on his line too. Few cars in the wall, and there's a front wing gone. I think that is... I think that might be...
The white car.
Santos's.
On the...
And
yes.
Santos's car is still damaged. He's still damaged, getting in the way of others on the track. They're trying to make avoiding action. And it's a meatball for Matthias Strauss. Matthias Strauss just took suspension damage in that, and he has taken required repairs, and he's been sent to the back and out of this race. Talk about filling in the penalty sheet after that. Multiple drivers impacted by the damage, but the race runs green, and Kyle to make his way up to P2 with Solo Edge from 22nd leading this run.
Yeah, and I hinted a little bit earlier that because these drivers are all on the same fuel playing same level fuel playing field, I think is the words I want to say, they're going to be more aggressive. And as you see, a result, 2 cars completely out of this top 5 from that aggression. And Solowage now to the point with Clenworth right behind. So these 2 cars, I believe, Solowage started all the way back in 22nd. Clenworth, I believe, was in 15th at one point in this race. So, they've just bided their time. They've played conservatively, and it's paying off dividends here as they've made great strides in this field.
Very easy to jump positions when you get that caution timed at the right time. I'm going to get a replay of what happened to Strauss's car. I have it lined up. It's all in the game of timing because that has changed everything about the order very, very rapidly. Solo Edge leading the way, and there's a big leader's advantage on the track, but Pressy wants it more all the way to the bottom and through. Cleanly done. Game himself, dropping back like a rocket, Solo Edge, because I think O'Sullivan's going to take it too. Too wide, it's Kosho and Gresh for 5th and 6th.
I think Solowage is saving. I think Solowage wants to get to this end of the race, only making one more pit stop. I think that's what he's doing right now, and Howie, I did do the math. So, already saving fuel, it is about 55 laps a stint, and that's not full pushing, that's not leading the field, that's being in the pack and saving a little bit of fuel. But if you put it in map 3, you save even more. You could extend potentially. And if you do the math, 98 plus that 110, so that's 55 times 2 plus 98, which is a lap that we restarted on, that gets you to lap 208. So from already saving a little bit, if he can save 17 more laps of fuel by putting it in map 3, putting it in map 5, or just holding the clutch through the corner, it is a viable one-stop strategy from here on out. And that might be Solowage's plan, and that might be why he's dropping to the back.
Where has Brian Fiolis come from? The end of the single file line, all the way up to P6 in an absolute heartbeat. He is fast, and he didn't get to prove it on the first race of the season at Homestead, Miami. Now he is absolutely flying around this track. On the topic of flying, Kyle Clenworth looks like he wants to run a bit of a different line and getting close to Pressy here and try and clear this pass. Right, to run the high side, get out of the dirty air, more momentum up high, and Kyle Gresh's nose looks like it wants to take another position. Well and truly out of Solowage's race, side by side to run. Let's hope they keep it together through the mid and the exit of that corner. Brian Fiolis looking up in P6, and the gap from there is as large as an ocean when it comes to these IndyCar machines. Liam O'Sullivan, he's very high now. He's dropping like an absolute rock. Kyle Gresh, another one of those drivers that started from nowhere and is now a serious contender today.
Yeah, you can tell that a lot of these drivers, they did that 98 plus 110. They saw they could only get to lap 208 on one stop, and they said, you know what? I don't want to save 17 laps of fuel. I don't think I'll be able to do it. I don't think it'll be worth doing it in the end, and they are full pushing. Kyle Clenworth, who we saw him doing a lot of fuel saving earlier on in the race, has thrown that out the window. He has committed. A lot of these drivers in this top 5 have committed to pitting 2 more times because they just don't think one stop out from here is viable, and I kind of agree with them. Saving an extra 17 laps on top of already a very hard fuel window to hit is not going to be easy. The one stop is going to be difficult, probably not viable in my eyes, but I would love to see some drivers go for it just so we can get a mix-up.
Dive to the bottom for Kyle Clenworth. Nicholas Pressy up high, and this bottom has often been where the pass has gotten done here so far throughout the evening. There's the pace, there's the run, and there's going to be the exit. The question is whether Solowage is going to get the next place. 2 wide for 2 rows. Gresh on the outside, Fiolis on the inside. Almost free, but Fiolis decides better. Klendworth leads from 10th to the top, but every lap is a different game around here. We approach the halfway mark, and this racing is electric.
Yeah, and once again, Brian Fiolas enters the conversation, spawns in out of nowhere. Look at how aggressive he is being. You can tell he's quicker than these guys. You can tell that he has the confidence. He has the runs on this outside lane, and I think very soon we might see some three-wide racing here if Fiolas starts to get a little bit aggressive.
Do you want to sit back in a position like this in the P5 and just sort of bide your time and wait for maybe the remainder of the cycle? Or do you want to punch your way all the way up the front? It's so risky, and you have to make these decisions at 200 miles an hour down the back straight. Lots of this pack hasn't truly separated. We've got Liam O'Sullivan running up in 6th, and Timothy Bryan, Shane Kosher. I don't think they're down and out from this either. Even Gary Loven, and we've not seen much of this race. Qualifying ban up to P11. Really, it's only to set only that P13 car that is out of this chase. Cars absolutely everywhere on this track. This is what they meant by it possibly being a pack race around here. Liam O'Sullivan sends it free to the bottom. Kyle Gresh tries to hold on the outside, and Fiolas has to hang on for dear mercy. He's able to clear.
Yeah, and O'Sullivan being on the bottom of 3 gets absolutely 0 run coming out of the corner. He has to turn in so heavy, slow his car down so much that he just has no speed coming down that back straight and is not able to get those positions that he sent it so hard into. The only way to make that bottom of 3 work is if you send it so far in the corner that you clear yourself by exit, but that is not an easy task. And Howie, I hate to say that I kind of predicted it, but I had a feeling that we would get a 3 wide very soon. And I'd love to see that I was right.
We're not even halfway through the race. Well, we are actually halfway through the race. Get the fact checkers out on that one. That one's purely false. But we're barely halfway through the race right now, and this is how we're going to battle each other until the end of times. Drivers were able to run away earlier in this race, and they have got absolutely none of that since this recent restart. It seemed as if our greatest contender to dominate this race, he was able to run away a lot early, took that devastating damage at the start, and now Matthias Strauss is just sort of suffering around the back of the track. And since then, Klendworth's fast, but there is a difference between a driver that can run and a driver that keeps that pack with him. I don't know how deliberate of a strategy it is. We'll get on board and try and find out, because we can look a little bit at the inputs. Obviously, we can sort of see when they're on and off in a binary state, but having an eye on that back stretch is going to be quite useful and important. You can't really flat out this track on this setup around, in the VOR series, unlike in the fixed racing in iRacing. But down the back stretch, he is lifting in bits. Kyle Klendworth is not completely on the power in the back stretch. You'd think it'd be the fastest there, but actually, he's playing a very, very long game as well. I think he's going to either save fuel, or he's trying to keep the pack with him a little bit and hope that maybe he can take that P2 and save some more fuel behind another driver. Very curious strategy.
Yeah, it is interesting to watch, because as someone who has run the numbers, making only one more pit stop from that lap 98 to the end of the race, essentially impossible. The reason you would save fuel here is just to extend and hope for cautions. Not hope for cautions, but extend in case of a caution. You know, if you're able to extend just an extra 3 to 4 laps and a caution comes out in that 3 to 4 lap time window, you can gain a lot, as we have a car coming down pit road. That's Bryce Saucier.
Bryce Saucier drifting it down pit road, 54 into the stint, the only driver that didn't stop on the last one. Alongside of him, Anthony Heitzmer played a bold gamble on getting another caution early. It didn't happen, so that's why you see that sort of out of character move. Now, you've seen a few times the classic Indycar breaking the toe from Kyle Klendworth, and that says everything you need to know about proving part of my idea on his strategy wrong. He's certainly not trying to get P2, or he'd be lining up to make it happen, but he is trying to bleed little bits of fuel saving down this back straight and just try and get what he can in this position, lead but save fuel. He can't really do both perfectly at once, but Kyle Clenworth is an expert driver, so if anyone knows how to do different things in a long race, he's one of them that is by far one of the most successful in that Votive Racing League team. Hasn't really hit up VOR very often, but he made a very strong impression at Homestead. Took damage, got knocked out of New Hampshire, and he's making the impression again to stamp his name down as an early favourite for this championship.
Yeah, and you talk about really what he's trying to accomplish by saving this fuel, and you know, once again, we can never really know, but one thing we do know for sure is that Matthias Strauss, the reason he was able to pull those gaps is probably just because he was flat outing every corner, wasn't really worried about saving, just trying to build a gap and push his tires out. We talk about Clenworth, we talked about his experience, he kind of knows how to lead this field, he knows what he wants to do, he doesn't just want to pull out and build this huge gap, burning out his fuel, burning out his tires. He's playing the long run game, and that is what a lot of these more inexperienced drivers won't do a lot of the time necessarily, is they play for the short run. You know, they think short run game, I'm in first, like this is good, this is where I want to be. But a lot of what you have to learn in racing, a lot of what I have had to learn years of racing is this patience, you know, playing the long game, saving your tires, extending your fuel stint. It's all really important around ovals.
Little bit more aggression in this back three of the chain. Brian Fiolas and Kyle Gresh and Liam O'Sullivan have been doing a little bit more trading of their places. I think 5 and 6 are slowing each other down now. Kyle Gresh remains on the pack. Side by side for P1 now. Kyle Clenworth not able to get past Solowage this time, but he's been looking for it for some time now, with 33 into the stint, by the way. So in a short while, we'll be seeing a couple more pit stops come out from the gang, but we're not quite there yet on the track. Too wide, Cressy and Gresh on the bottom and top, respectively. And Gresh doesn't look like he's too intent in making that dramatic move. And look how far back this train now goes, all the way down to P11. That's Marcos Teixeira. Our last driver in line. It's 11 drivers in a massive pack. We didn't see this earlier today.
Yeah, and Howie, that makes me think that solo-wise, he's also saving fuel behind Clenworth. He's very content being in second, lifting into the corners, you know, getting that draft and just essentially using Clenworth as a fuel-saving tool. If Solowage wasn't saving fuel, he would easily get a pass on Clenworth. We saw how many times people earlier in this race were able to pass down that inside with ease. And if Clenworth is saving fuel, that pass becomes even easier. So I believe that Solowage and probably even Pressy, Fuelis, a lot of them might be lifting into the corners, using the car in front of them to save fuel, and playing a more conservative race just to try to extend in case of a caution. Because if Clenworth and Solowage, as I say that, Solowage is, no, sorry, this is, no, that was Pressy. I'm confusing the paint cars. That's 100% on me. I thought that was Clenworth. It's actually Fuelless, as he's fighting hard for that P4.
Yeah, Kyle Clenworth, you're usually in bright blue. Your name's in bright blue, and then you're going to show up and you're going to double pink on the road. Don't worry, Fuelless never changes. Every time you see the bright pink, you think Brian Fuelless is playing that game on the track. Don't you worry too much about it. And you were talking about his patience. He might still be being patient, but he has pushed his way past Gresh, who's now dropped to 6th, and he's looking to try and make the move for P3 now. The stint reaching its later stages. Now you want to play the game of I want to be the first one if we line up in the lane together. So the strategy sort of changes from early run to mid-run to late run, and we're approaching late run. Kyle Clenworth now happy to run real high, and I have the feeling he was happy just taking the upper lane, or maybe just resigned to it after a poor entry. He slots in to P2 behind. Could be room for 3 wide if the 3 drivers get a crazy run. Thankfully not going to get that, but Pressy very, very close there on that middle lane to Fuelless, who I thought for a second had a chance of getting around Clenworth. He's making the moves to try and end up there.
Yeah, and Fuelless, who's kind of sniffed out the fact that these drivers in first, second, and third place are saving fuel, being more conservative. Fuelless has had enough of it. He's done biding his time. He's he's going to be the one going out of line. He has been making these moves on the inside, trying to fight for positions. But as you can see how that's really hurt him, as he almost gets his nose chopped off by Pressy. He's lost that outside lane. He's lost the draft completely. And now he's just falling and falling back as he has to pit. 40 laps into his stint. This is a very early pit stop.
Violas now thinks that this pack isn't worth it, and he's going to try something very, very different. This is an early stop in the stint. 41 in. Some of these drivers are going to go a whole lot longer. Hopefully this time makes it in and out of the pit lane without incident. And now it opens up this group just a little. Timothy Bry, not talked about him in this run, but now he's just well and truly a part of this, I think, alongside Shane Kosher and Gary Lovin in 8th, who have just been sitting there, biding their time, but slowly benefiting from what we've been seeing on the track. Kyle Gresh holding off Liam O'Sullivan successfully. Bit of moving back there from Shane Kosher. Tries to look low, tries to look mid, doesn't really get either done very well. No drivers making a move on the pit road quite yet. Kyle Klendworth now in that back position, and we'll keep an eye on those driver inputs and we'll see how he plays. You obviously want to lift through that corner in dirty air, get your nose away from the other, and he certainly now is running it almost full bore most of the way down the straight as he enters turn 3 and 4. And I really don't know what's going to work best here. You would think, you'd be inclined to say that the traditional strategy that you've been calling has been the play, but this has been a league of unpredictability. This has been our most predictable race so far, and it's been a spectacular one all throughout, a very interesting one as Kyle Clenworth makes a move for the lead, but one where, are we out of the question for another curveball?
Well, let me say, I 100% see Brian Phillis's plan here. These cars, no matter when they pit, unless they extend to 55 to go, they're going to have to make one more stop regardless. So it doesn't even matter that Brian Phillis cut off his fuel window short, pit early. He didn't have to get that fuel tank all the way to the end of its stint because there was a lot of room just in the fuel window initially. That goes back to numbers I've written up, so you're just gonna have to trust me on that. It is a very easy two-stop. You do not have to tank the fuel to the end. So Brian Phillis is going to pull off the ultimate undercut. And if it stays green for another 8 laps to when these cars have to pull it down pit lane, Brian Phillis probably will just be your leader. The undercut, the better tires, he's going to be in first. Of course, Glenroe, Solowise, Gresh, they're fighting, slowing them down as well. So Brian Phillis in 5th place, falling through the pack, said, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger, I'm going to come down pit road, and when everything is said and done, Howie, I think Brian Phillis will be our race leader.
Not really seeing Gresh in this conversation for first or second, but now he's looking very, very, very racy and very, very aggressive. A really impressive run for the first-time racer in the league. I know that he is an Indycar aficionado in his own time, alongside his other sim racing pursuits. Solowise now on the bottom of Kyle Clenworth. He's going to inherit the lead after Clenworth took it back just a lap or two earlier. Not calling these for all the intensity in the world, because I have a feeling this is a little bit of a back and forth trade procession. Maybe not as intense as Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but definitely drivers are just sort of letting themselves pass or be passed. Now a huge jump to the bottom. Doesn't really like he's trying to break too much draft, as Clenworth doesn't really join alongside. Gresh is the one in line behind to try and get some draft, and I think drivers are accepting their lot now in the line, taking something if it's available. And we're really going to see what changes in the next 2 stops. A little bit of a twitch from Shane Kosher. Almost a wipeout. Keeps it in one piece. Gresh now making moves for P2.
Yeah, and looking at the times, Brian Phillis is almost consistently about a 10th or 2/10ths quicker than the rest of this field a lap. So, yeah, once again, that just plays back into my prediction that Brian Phillis probably will just be your leader when all the pit stops are said and done. But yeah, Clenworth, who I thought was playing more conservative, has to make the pit stop now. I believe that was O'Sullivan that came down with him.
Bit of a race into pit road here. You can obviously battle until the entry, and actually O'Sullivan's going to beat him out in the entering. Bit of a lock-up too. He's able to make it in. This is going to begin the train of drivers making their stops in. So it's Clenworth and O'Sullivan in first. Solowege next. Gresh, you thought would have got in line, doesn't quite. Timothy Bray is in there too. Now Kyle Gresh leads the race for another lap. Nicholas Prezi and Shane Cochet lines up in P3. Gary Lovin in fourth, Sebastian DeFrenzy in fifth, and Marcos Chisera in sixth. 94 calls on the chat. Nicholas Prezi, he's going to join the pack in next. So does Gresh. A very good entry for Gresh off the back straight. He's someone who may have been practicing that in his time. Shane Kosher inherits for another lap. Only a few more drivers to go until we settle out who's leading this pack. Look out for where Fiolis is. P12 right now.
Yeah, Fiolis gets past Clenworth. Not able to get past Sullivan, but there he is right ahead. And Sullivan might be a sitting duck here on those cold tires with no one in front of him to protect him. Fiolis might be able to look for the pass if he's able to get close enough to him. And I believe that is right there. That is Solowege exiting pit lane. So I wasn't quite right. Fiolis isn't going to come out of everything said and done in first place, but he will be in second with a Sullivan being your race leader once the rest of these drivers pit, as I believe... No, sorry. Gresh and Presti have already made their pit stop. They're just way up the road. So I believe Gresh is now your effective race leader.
Here's Gresh out here on the track. He's behind Fiolis. It's just the pit exit on this track is very, very long. So Shane Kosher in the pit lane, DeFrenzy in the pit lane, DeSera in the pit lane. O'Sullivan is race leader over Fiolis, Saucier, Solowege, Gresh, and my biggest surprise of the cycle, Clenworth has dropped significantly. We saw his pit entry wasn't that great, but for him to lose even more, you could see in the background, that's Sebastian DeFrenzy, and to reset the pack right after the stops, that is going to be a frustration for many.
And Gary Lovern is still in pit road when that caution came out, so very curious to see where he ends up once all is said and done. But I think it's just going to be cold tires out of pit road. Gets a little bit too much gas, and it's very easy to do, especially when you've been riding on those warmed up, high grip tires for that long. Spinning it on cold tires coming out of pits is not an uncommon mistake.
I have made some of the most embarrassing IndyCar pit exits in history. I've jumped right off the flat onto the high banking of Pocono, and you know exactly what happens when that happens. The car just it gives up on the spot. I've somehow spun it out of Daytona in these things. I mean, ain't that a funny week one day? But yeah, it's a spin up well before he even begins to hit the track surface. Just a little bit too enthusiastic on the way up. I want to maybe catch him on the roll bar and just see how the power was building. It doesn't sound too enthusiastic. He was not really jamming that much power in it. Let me tell you that. That surprises me very much. What does this do for the pack? Well, you mentioned Gary at Lovin. Look who has taken our race lead. Gary at Lovin in the pit lane when the caution comes out. Has one of the quickest pit stops of everybody when it comes to time saved. And talk about a turnaround from a driver that we didn't expect to make it this high. But that's the luck of the wild cards I mentioned there on the table.
And Brian Fiolis, who should be in third, right behind Sullivan, is in 12th position. So I don't know if he had to serve a penalty or if he came down pit road again. No, he didn't come down pit road again. Oh, he did. Sorry. Brian Fiolis did come down pit road again right when the caution came out. I don't know why he did that. He was in third. Maybe he had some damage he fixed. Maybe he just clipped a wall somewhere, wanted to get his front wing all in check. Maybe he just wanted to get that... Oh, that's right, because he pit 15 laps ago. So he was already 15, 16 laps into his stint, so maybe just getting the fuel, getting that fuel target back on number, re-evening with the rest of the pack. But even doing that, every driver in this field still has to make one more stop with 72 to go. There is no way drivers can save 70 or plus stops of fuel.
Just want to show you what happened to Matthias Strauss earlier on in the race. Sent all the way to the back. That may have been the moment, but I'm curious. Let's just press this button a few more times. There it was. I wanted to try and catch just quite how he took that race-ending damage, our strongest driver on the track, and as a result of incident after incident, entering at turn 3, took one bad clip, took one little bit of damage too hard, drive behind into the wall. He cuts down in front of the 20, and that suspension damage to the rear that takes him out of the race. Delayed green flag, by the way, on the track, I believe. Trying to work out what's happened here. Usually we would be going green right about now, but I've heard the not going green call on the track. I think it may have been due to drivers exiting the pit lane and being out of rhythm.
Yeah, and now that we're 70 to go, it's going to be an all-out fiesta now, an all-out fight. Fuel saving will get you absolutely nothing here. These drivers are most likely just going to split this last 70 laps in half, pit with 35 to go, and then you're good to the end there, because there's no point in bringing these tires, making them go through 55 laps around Nashville. There's just no point. You're just going to lose time with the tire wear. So what I would do is I just push for 35 laps, come down pit road, push another 35, and as long as there's not a caution and you get screwed over, that would be the ideal strategy given a green race here on out. But at the same time, with 30 to go, with 20 to go, that's when drivers start getting antsy. That's when it's more likely for cautions to occur in general. So maybe you don't want to split it in half. Maybe you do want to go those 55 laps and extend in case of a caution, and then just have a really short 15 lap run at the end. But I would much rather be on the side of split in half, 35, and really push out those tires.
Glad you're spending your evening with us. If you are, keeping an eye on the YouTube chat, and Pascal Fiola's Brian's dad's been cheering him on. Brian's been up and down the grid, and I wouldn't consider his P12 to be the end of his race by any means. Sebastian Kinder as well had retired from the classic Indycar series, which was running alongside this on the Green Flag TV, so that's why he couldn't make it to today's race. And I know someone else would like me to shout him out, but I'm going to save him the 6 satisfaction. We're green again. Gary Lovin leads the way, but he's slow off the launch. Liam O'Sullivan takes to the bottom, and Solowise might even just beat him out down the run. It's a top 5, almost 3 wide into the middle. Not quite succeeded. Lovin glued to that top. He's not dropped back that much further.
Yeah, he's trying to make that top stick. It's very, very difficult, especially if you don't have a lot of help behind. You can see that Solowise on the inside line. He's getting a bit of dirty air from O'Sullivan, so he's actually not able to complete the move. But now Lovern has some help up top, so Solowise is just going to have to back in behind her. But no, he's still going for it. I stand corrected here. He's probably not going to be able to get it done, because once again, Sullivan goes low, gives Solowise a lot of dirty air, and Gary Lovern will hang on to that second place.
The pack ending here, Senna Bukovan in P8. Kyle Klendworth didn't get the launch he was looking for, and sitting in P9, it's the gap ahead that's significant. Brian Fiola's almost thought about sending it to the bottom. Instead, he's going to run alongside Pim Van Gastel on the outside line, who drops out a few places up ahead. It's a scramble. It's going to become more and more of a sprint race as we approach the end. It's only going to be one stop to the finish, and Gary Lovin, bit of a comeback story, got very lucky with the strategy, but in order to stay in this Shark Tank, you have to be fast and you have to be competitive. Long-time racer of the series. He's proven himself up there. Kyle Gresh glued to his rear wing as Nicholas Pressey looks onwards for any sign of weakness. Yeah,
and Solowise did, I think, finally clear Gary Lovern as we go back. This is Fiolis on Klendworth, those two bright pink cars. You know, I've confused them a little bit earlier on in the race. Fiolis, we saw very, very racy. How many times, Howie, I feel like, has he just cut through this pack, gone from 12th to 6th, and he'll just, like, essentially spawn in to that top 5 group in consideration for that first place conversation. So he's going to be looking to make a lot of moves, fights all the way up into that top 5, and see if we can get a win here. But yeah, once again, Gary Lover now did fall back to 3rd and now has to defend from Gresh.
Liam O'Sullivan started in P2 and has sort of been everywhere on the track. But right now, he's exactly where he wants to be. Solowedge and Loven started on the bottom. Liam O'Sullivan in the wall. I wanted to wait to see whether that would fix itself before I made a dramatic call, as does iRacing sometimes. He remains in position with that lead with just the tiniest of scrapes. Kyle Gresh has been hanging around P3 to P4, and now time's running out, and now you don't really get to play much of a strategy game. If he wants to prove he's fast enough, he's going to have to make his move. O'Sullivan dives to the bottom, thinking he's going to get someone out of his draft, and it doesn't really translate. Solowedge doesn't take the bait, doesn't join him low either in the turn.
Yeah, O'Sullivan's taking a really interesting line here. He's not going outside, inside, outside. He's really holding this inside lane here. I don't know if it's for tire saving, which is what it could be, or if it's just to get Solowedge out of his draft. I'm not too sure what he's thinking, but I'm going to assume he knows better than me that either he's tire saving or he doesn't want Solowedge to get his draft. But very interesting line here from O'Sullivan in that 12 car.
Still, Kyle Gresh, I've been waiting for him to make the move, and he's not quite been doing it. That top 5 stays it is. Timothy Bry in 6th, Marcus Serra in 7th for Senna Bokoven. I think I'll be getting better at these names as the race goes on. I hope so. We're guessing. I'll get a lot of feedback when the race is done, don't you worry. In 8th, Kyle Clenworth in 9th with Bryce Saucier in 10th. Brian Fiolas lines up in 11th, was cleared quite significantly by Clenworth, ahead of Shane Kosher, Pim Van Gestel and Andres Vince. Sebastian De Frenzy sits in 15th, or De Frenzy sits in 15th, make it, with Anthony Heitzman 16th, and Roden F. Tink making a remarkably early pit stop that many laps down with Julian Altena in 18th, Matthias Strauss, Aidon Santos, Katie Pollock, Dan Ench, Jaco Seegers and John Christensen retired from the race. Up front, not much movement yet, but less and less patience as the laps begin to wear down.
Yeah, those are your 18 drivers still in this race. Remember, Julian Altena in that 11 car was fighting up here in these podium positions, had really good pace, but unfortunately, his power cut out for only 10 seconds. And that was just enough time to put him 8 laps down. But now it looks like we're too wide here. Kyle Gresh, and that's going to be Nicholas Pressey fighting for 4th position. And once again, we can remind you guys of the driver standings. Rodden Eftink, who just came down for that pit stop 5 laps down, he is your championship leader. So not a good race for him. That opens the door for Kyle Clenworth, who's only 4 points behind, running in 10th. And remember, guys, Amon Lal isn't here. So once again, neither is Sebastian Kinder. So Kostek Solowedge and Kyle Clenworth, the door is completely opened for one of these two to maybe take control of this championship lead.
Course drop rounds in the championship available except for the Indy 500. Not the next race in this championship, but we'll be bringing it to you in full length here on Green Flag TV after the Indianapolis Grand Prix. I'll remain in the production truck, but you'll maybe get to hear just a little bit more from the voice of VOR, Gary Goodzo, who'll be joining us for much of the rest of the season as we continue here on the channel. Pleasure to be bringing it to you. Still, this train not really moving. Gary Loven's done well to keep his position, but talk about a pack race there. We have not separated anywhere on the track. It's gotten less and less packy the more desperate these drivers have gotten. And it's just leading now to a huge train. We're not getting massive runs. People are sticking with each other quite well. But it's leading to usually the instruments of chaos. We've not quite seen too much chaos today on the track. It's been a very, very, very clean day out here for the VOR Indycar Series drivers. Most yellows not taking anybody out of this race. So it really does become anyone's game, and there's still room for wildcards to change up the formula.
Yeah, at a track where so much chaos has happened in the past before, the fact that we've stayed green for relatively most of it shows to how much respect these drivers are giving each other on the corner exits. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but these drivers know how big of a factor netcode is as we have a move for 4th place. How big of a factor netcode is, and they're giving a lot of room, not only in the middle of the course, also on the exit, they're leaving none of it up to chance, none of it up to risk, and they're really leaving, a lot of the times, a half a car width to almost a full car width on these corner exits. You can see anytime that cars are side by side, there will be a lot of gap in between them. So these drivers leaving nothing up to netcode this race.
Server farm was changed to North America as well for this race, which has no doubt helped the matters out there on the track. It was tried on the European servers for a few weeks, and I think it led to a little bit more chaos than it was worth. Bit of a mixed result from the changes to the Nashville weekend. Of course, we've had some amazing racing, but drivers have glued themselves back together again. The cold track has contributed to that. It's not moved a degree, by the way. Drivers have not really been warming this track up by running around. It's still sitting at 32 Celsius or 88 Fahrenheit on the road. Can't quite fry an egg on it quite yet. All sorts of varying temperatures, of course, running throughout the season. Day races, night races. We have it all on this highly varied schedule, and 2 road races, including our next race, a double sprint race special at the Indianapolis road course. It leads up into the 500, and you should stay subscribed to Green Flag TV to catch that, alongside more the classic Indycar series, and also plenty of other race series of all different varieties, the FTR Championship, and lots of stock car racing of all sorts of varieties all throughout your week. The channel is growing by the month. Liam O'Sullivan almost gets challenged by Solowaj for P2. Doesn't quite happen, and Solowaj's poor exit could give Gary Loven at the bottom of the track here. Keeps it alongside Gary Loven and Solowaj, 2 drivers that were banned from qualifying for this race for causing incidents of a damaged car last week, and they have both absolutely come into their own to get revenge out here today. Beautiful side-by-side racing further back. That's Clendworth on the bottom of 3, who've kept it a whole lap around the track 3 wide. Violas hasn't moved terribly much, sitting in the wake of all of this action. He still sits here in P10. Clenworth sort of backs out a little bit to make that P2 move happen, as Brand Viola's now dropping first to stop very early. You talked about splitting this stint into 2, 35-35, but if you want to try something different and instead fill the tank up to full for the final run, now the window's open for you.
Yeah, and as we have I believe that's Solowaj looking on Lover, and that was very, very antsy. A little bit of car contact made. You saw both their cars getting very squirrely, but Solowaj will be able to hold on to that P2. He's been challenged by Gary Lovern for these past 6 or 7 laps now, but yeah, Brian Fiolis once again going for the undercut. Doesn't want to be pack racing, doesn't want to be in this jumbled up mess, risk of getting crashed out. He's going for this undercut. He's now going to turn some laps on his own, see if he can build that gap back. Remember, last time, it worked really, really well. It put him all the way from P6 or 7, all the way up into 2nd position. So he's trying that same strategy again, pitting much earlier than everybody else. And as long as we stay green, it is a very, very viable strategy. The one other thing, I've thought about it more, and I realize now why O'Sullivan is making this drop to the bottom. Part of it probably is to break that draft of Solowaj. Part of it also, if you hold that bottom line, there is no chance for the car behind to take that inside line and pass you if you're already there. So since this track has had very, very difficulty getting moves around that outside line, the inside seems to be the place where all the overtakes are being happened. O'Sullivan is cutting off all possibilities of Solowaj taking that inside line from him even before the straight begins. You can see he holds that inside line, make sure he can't get to his left no matter what, and that is how O'Sullivan is keeping the lead so effectively.
Some of the onboard running here. Here's Solowaj's car in P2. Very happy to just be lying in wait here. And it's Brian Fiola's on the alternate strategy. Keep an eye out on those lap times and see how they change, because now he runs entirely alone in clean air. Going to make up the time when other drivers are stopped. Everybody does have to make one more stop this race. But he's hoping his clean air running is actually faster than the pack. And if that happens, then it works out for him. Call out for lap cars going into 3. Here's Nicholas Pressey in P7. Dueling out with Kyle Clenworth still. You can see the field up ahead down the road. This gap's been starting to grow. Clenworth, though, will be very happy with a P6 given the championship situation. As you so helpfully explained earlier, the moves are getting more dramatic. Sullivan diving to the bottom and Solowise trying to join. We're about to hit 35 to go. And so now there's 2 more things you could do with the strategy. That's stop right now or stop when you're empty. One of those 2 is going to be the key to winning this race. Could even be the 3rd trick with Brian Fiolis, but whoever's going to bite first is going to start a long, long train.
Yeah, and it kind of just depends on, do you think there's going to be a caution in the next 15 laps, or do you not? If you don't believe there's going to be a caution from now until lap 20, you make your pit stop. You get those better tires, you use the tires when they're good, wear them out, and then you get some new tires on. But if you do think there's going to be a caution, stay out. Use that caution to pit. Propel yourself up the field like Gary Lovren did, putting him into that podium place he is in right now. So it's really just, do you think there's going to be a caution or not? And from what I've seen so far, I don't think there's going to be a caution. I like playing those cautionless strategies. I like assuming that my drivers, my fellow competitors can keep the races green, can keep the track going. So this is where I would dive down to the pit lane, get some fresh rubber, and really start making that undercut work.
That's your call. Brian's made his call, and nobody else has made any call at all. This race has been remarkably green so far in this VOR season. Start the season always a little bit more chaotic, and then it sort of dies down. But in fact, by dying down in wrecks, it amps up in excitement as the races get a lot more and more thrilling and more strategy filled. Gary Lovren losing out P3 to Kyle Gresh. Didn't really have to make an aggressive move for it. Actually got it done on the outside. Kyle Clenworth, fast as ever, has been slowly creeping up into the background like Jaws. You can almost hear the theme in your head. Liam O'Sullivan is our taker into the pit lane. 32 to go. That means the rest of the drivers are trying to go long. That gives us a very strong barometer. O'Sullivan's our mid-stopper. Fiolis is our early stopper. Is everyone else our late stopper?
That seems like what it's going to be, unless these other people copycat right here and make their pit right now, but they don't. No other takers for pit lane. They've all stayed out. These are our late stoppers, as you said, Howie. But now I'm curious, where does O'Sullivan come out in correspondence to Fiolis? You know, this fight for the lead, that's all great, but my concern is Fiolis versus O'Sullivan. There we are. I believe this is O'Sullivan right now coming down through turn 4. Fiolis coming down through turn 4. O'Sullivan on the pit exit, pushing it to its limit, squirreling that car all around. Fiolis now entering 1. I don't think he has it. I think O'Sullivan, wow, that gap is much, much bigger than I expected it would be.
The gap at the end of it all is 5 seconds big. And up front, drivers are absolutely dueling as if there's been none of this strategy talk whatsoever. Fastest lap of the race, by the way, just set by Julian Altena, proving that he could have really been something else out there on the track. But you notice that Kyle Clenworth just made an absolute dive to the lead. We're going to have to take another look at that one as we're too busy trying to study our pit strategy. Little bit of, I don't know if that was contact, or I don't know whether that was spooking of Kyle Gresh. We're yellow on the track. We will get there, don't you worry. I'm afraid it's a big one midway through the field. There's Clenworth making up to the top, and now we can look at what just happened on the track. First contact, Senna Bokhoven. Shane Kosher and Nicholas Pressey are involved too, alongside Marcos Tissera. This doesn't change the whole order, but a major wreck we're about to witness in front of our very eyes, I think.
Yeah, and this wreck is very, very bad for O'Sullivan, Fiolis, those drivers that I have been kind of hyping up a lot of this race. This is not what they wanted at all. But here we are. We'll just taps a little bit, and yeah, 4 or 5 cars collected in that. That is a big one.
Nicholas Pressey, the car on the outside, it actually did involve a challenger right near the top, because I hadn't quite realized how high up that Kosher had ended up running car contact there, one stuck in the middle, 4 cars caught. So it's not a wreck for the win, but those are some drivers that had some ambitions, let me tell you that. What does this do for the field? Well, drivers getting their last stops for free now. That's Kyle Clenworth in the picture. Gresh gets a further ahead pit box, misses it by just a little. Drivers already flying out of the lane. Here's Solowide, going to be beaten out of the lane by Clenworth. Gresh is going to drop between the two, and Kyle Clenworth looks to inherit the lead. Going to look out for maybe any end-of-line penalties. I don't see them. So that makes our order, as you can see it on the side, for a one-stint dash to the line. You've seen a lot of racing here today, Lucas, and you've made a big note of fuel strategy for me, but you've also made a big note of which drivers you think have the racing energy. Who do you think could push for this win here today?
You know, I want to see it. I want to see the 22nd to first. I'm going to back Hallstack Solowage here. He has been sitting in P2 for so much of this race, whether it be behind Kyle Clenworth, whether it be I forget who he was sitting behind that last stint. Oh, it was O'Sullivan. Whether it be behind O'Sullivan, whether it be behind Clenworth, he has been in that P2 consideration for so much of this race. He's the driver that I'm going to back, but I think we're going to see a great fight between Clenworth, between Gresh, between Solowage for the first place.
I'm going to have to mentally amp myself and my vocal cords for this one, I think, because from now, every single pass matters. Every single little moment of draft, of dirty air, of slipstream is going to do everything for you. There is no need for anyone to fuel save for a second. So, do you want to be running up front? Do you want to be sitting in tow, waiting? Are you anticipating that cautions are about to breed cautions? This is where the most spectacular drivers are made. Kyle Clenworth has the chance to make it 2 wins out of 3 races and cement his legacy at the top of this season. Kyle Gresh, not seen him yet on this championship, could make a real surprise charge and prove that he may be an occasional ringer, but when he's on the track, he is an absolute monster. Or Solowage, who has really just been at the top in the right place at the right time every single lap. There's only one way to find out, and that's to go green here at Nashville. Clenworth chooses the bottom. It's single file, but when you go on the green, and that top 3 have made their run away with it already. Timothy Bryan, Bryce Saucier, nowhere near the run. Kyle Clenworth chooses the bottom. Solowage tries to choose lower. Isn't able to make it in alongside on corner entry. And Gresh is washing up and slowing further back. We're 3 wide. Gary Loven's not out of it. Despite being inconvenienced, he's still in a decent position to make a charge. And that was dangerously close for him on the bottom of that 3 wide track. Clenworth in the lead, running right now.
Yeah, this is where you throw all caution out of the window. You set your roll bars aggressive. I wouldn't go as aggressive as 1.6, which, if you do know, is the softest that you can get your front, the stiffest you can get your rear, and that gives you the most amount of turn in. But I would set him aggressive. I would be driving quick, and I would not let anybody get in my way. I would be sending moves. You're 20 to go. This is where it all comes down to. Pressure makes diamonds, and now we see Clenworth pulls out that 410 scap. If you remember how he was not doing that earlier, which shows that earlier he was fuel saving, and now he's holding nothing back.
Clenworth thinks there's nothing to gain from dropping to P2, and I think every single lap he's going to play this same game. 3 drivers follow. Bryce Saucier, furthest back, that joins that little snake down the backstretch, but it's not a massive backstretch. It is a fast track, but it's not Superspeedway size, so the runs aren't as legendary as we've got at Homestead or at Indianapolis later on in this season. Moves less dramatic this time, and Solowage jumps high in preparation. It's going to be less than 10 minutes of green flag running to the line. Solowage yet to find that opportunity in. He looks high, tries to run momentum outside of the dirty air, ducks back in now in time. Keep an eye on the roll bar here to see how he runs this. It's not going to be behind Kyle Clenworth at all. He's in less than a 10th, and Kyle Gresh not out of this at all.
Yeah, and you can see Clenworth doing the same exact thing O'Sullivan was doing earlier this race. He's instantly dropping to that inside line on the exit of that corners, giving Solowaj once again no chance of looking to his inside, no chance of making a move there. The only way he can get it done is if he gets a crazy run and is able to somehow send it around the outside, which is very, very hard to do. We have not seen it done yet tonight, but you never know what these drivers can pull out with 18 to go. You never know what these drivers might have been holding on in secret for the entire race, and they might let the cat out of the bag, let that power unleash, essentially just let their strategies be shown, especially when it comes down to the wire like this. That's when you want to let that happen. So maybe the outside can be done, just no drivers have shown that they can do it yet.
Every line is being tried, every little bit of track is being tested for grip. And Solowide constantly just seems to be threatening to Kyle Clenworth that if you stick to that yellow line like glue, I will send it under you and I will make that space my own. As he moves up the track, it's contact with Kyle Gresh. That's going to send him back, possibly damage to the 6th car. I don't think that was intentional, but he didn't notice the car to his outside. Both are slow. Clenworth's going to enjoy the run, but Gary Lovern now your P2 contender, and Leon O'Sullivan, he's back in this race.
Yeah, solo-wise, just a little bit too aggressive. Just didn't quite see Gresh on his outside. That's going to cost him a lot of positions, down from 2nd to 7th. Gary Lovern, O'Sullivan now round out your podium.
And Lovern's looking racy, Lovern's looking competitive, already makes it straight to the rear wing of Clenworth. And O'Sullivan wants to play the same game. We're seeing Clenworth move less aggressively here in anticipation and in reaction. Gary Lovern was quite the anonymous figure until 60 to go, and then just became a speed demon this season. He's not really come alive. It was a very bad day in New Hampshire before the penalty, with damage and wrecks abound. But he's a long-time veteran in this series, and he's trying to prove right now that he still has a legacy in him, independent driver, but just as strong as the rest, and that's not going to be it for him. There's contact on the rear wing, and Gary Lovern, he's out of the race, and we're yellow again.
Yep. Oh, got a really good run coming off of that corner. Just didn't expect how much quicker he was than Gary Lovern, and unfortunately for that red 34, that is his ripping off the car, and that will be his night finished.
There's a little bit of net code in that contact with O'Sullivan, but I will say that there was a chance that one would have played its way out anyway. We'll take another look at it in slow motion in the blimp here. This was close and tight and tough. O'Sullivan to the inside, and that's what's going to push out Lovern and is going to make him unstable. Some in the chat trying to call it was fully net code. Here's my preview. I'm not inclined to completely believe. And O'Sullivan's still sitting here in P2. He's going to still be potentially here to claim the spoils.
It did look weird how the contact looked like it was made from O'Sullivan's right front wing to Lovern's rear left tire. So the fact that Lovern just lost his rear wing, like it just fell off the car, definitely a bit of iRacing shenanigans. But in real life, if your tire gets clipped by a wing from behind, you're spinning right, you're going into the wall no matter what. So even though there definitely was iRacing shenanigans at play, with the contact, if it was real life, I'm pretty sure both drivers don't survive. But I say both drivers don't survive that crash. O'Sullivan doesn't even have front wing, so don't know how he was able to get away with that one, Scott. But unfortunately, on the other hand, Gary Lovern did not.
try and deal with those small mic cutouts just before we go green again. But even I understood everything that was going down, so that's just fine. Clendworth, O'Sullivan, Saucier, Brian Vinci. Those 4 and 5 drivers, not really seen them in this game. Gary Love and Sitzer a meatball in the pits. Kyle Gresh is on the track, but I think the damage he took from that earlier contact probably just took him well and truly out of the race in terms of pace. Same with Kostek Solowaj. Kyle Clendworth leads the field again to our second green flag. Second green flag in his final run. That's the end of the sentence. Here it comes, and here comes our start. Dive down by Bryce Saucier, briefly below that line, but picks it back up in time. And Clendworth leading that field, controlling that pace, currently getting away. But last time we had a good run, the drivers caught up quick in the toe. 9 laps to go for Clendworth to claim 2 on the season.
Now we have O'Sullivan v. Clendworth, 2 drivers a lot of the laps in this race. Besides Matthias who, was taken out of contention very early on. These are your 2 drivers who have dominated most of this race. 2 drivers that deserve to be fighting for this first place, this victory right here with 8 to go. I really hope they're able to put on a battle for us here. But once again, Clendworth going to be sticking to the inside line, doing everything in his power to make sure O'Sullivan can't get to his left side.
Yeah. O'Sullivan makes blocks and moves on Saucier, who tries to get up and around the outside. Timothy Bry's going to take the window in to the bottom. And these drivers might just be slowing each other up a little bit by bit. O'Sullivan knows he's running out of time, lap by lap by lap. But every lap, he's just not getting the run done. There is a really good strength in being the leader here today. It's been hard to pass, not impossible, but it's taken mistakes, and it's taken the lead car really giving and taking quite a bit and letting it happen and cooperating. And if there's one thing that Kyle Clendworth is not going to do in P1, it's going to be cooperate. He misses the bottom, though, into turn 1, and O'Sullivan washes up and takes that front wing. That's repaired in time, but that contact can't be good for Clendworth's car. It slowed him down. It's almost a bit of a bump and run on the track. Not the first time we've seen one of those at Nashville. I don't think Clendworth's car is turning right now into these turns.
He has some right side pod damage, but also he's driving that car angrily. You can see it, Howie. He is mad. He did not want to lose his victory in the way. So he is driving on tilt. He is full pushing his car, and that is when a lot of mistakes are made. But he is using this rage. He is letting it fuel him. He's back in his second, and now he's once again looking for this lead. So even though he's driving a little bit angry, he's doing it to pretty good effect.
Kyle Clendworth will not let that damage stop him, and he certainly won't let his car finish the race like that, because a hard contact right as I was making that call. And he's out of the race from the top with 2 to go. Contact with Bryce Saucier. And the story continues on the track. You were talking anger seconds before that erupted. Let's go back a little bit earlier. Bryce Saucier running side by side. And this race has gone from clean to fast. Almost 3 wide. Clendworth moves down the track a little into that 07. And both are wiped across the apron. In fact, another car's collected entirely on the way. Bryce Saucier and Clendworth out of the race. And we might be ending the day here today. Liam O'Sullivan leads the road with a black flag. I'm not sure what's going on with iRacing quite there, because sometimes these are things that get cleared, and sometimes that is a black flag for Liam O'Sullivan. That's 18x for Liam O'Sullivan. So he'll be crossing the line first under caution, but I don't think Liam O'Sullivan's going to get to take home this win whatsoever. A black flag for incident points means that it is going to be Timothy Bry who takes the P1 on the line when the penalties get processed. We'll not be extending this race at Nashville. We'll finish under yellow. And a driver who hasn't led a single lap on the day has just stayed out of the incidents to take it to the line. Timothy Bray will be the driver to take the checkered flag here at Nashville.
I mean, we hinted to it a little bit earlier. Sometimes the way to win these races is just to live. You survive long enough, you're able to stay up there long enough and just not drive aggressively, not fight for first the entire race, not fight for position the entire race. Just simply get your car across that finish line. That can just sometimes be the best way to do it. And of course, Liam O'Sullivan won't be able to serve that drive-through penalty. He will be given a post-race EOL by iRacing automatically, putting him all the way back into 10th place behind Kyle Clenworth. So you're right, Timothy Bray will be your race winner here tonight.
Talk about storylines today on the track. From brilliant strategy to brilliant racing to drama that is going to keep any head steward up for weeks. That is a story to make VOR history. First time winner of the season. And we have some dramatic races down the line to keep making this season come alive. Plenty of upsets on the field, and we'll be able to get your unofficial race results any moment now as we catch. Does Timothy Bray know that he can burn it up? Does he know that he can enter victory lane? Timothy Bray. I've been calling it wrong the whole day, and I literally hear Altona on the mic say Bray. Well, it might have been right the first time. He knows his position. He's now going to take his celebratory lap.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. He might not even know that Liam O'Sullivan was black flagged and that he is the race winner, but there you go. Puts it on the throttle, turns that thing hard left, gets some very beautiful donuts, some great tire marks left on that start-finish straight there at the Nashville Superspeedway here in Music City. And after 300 laps are completed, your winner here tonight is Timothy Bray, as he's going to keep it out of the wall, do a lot of burnouts down that front stretch, and you can see the excitement in these donuts.
What a story, what a day. Let's get your unofficial race result up on the road. Timothy Bray wins in Nashville due to a penalty, taking Liam O'Sullivan down to P10 on the line. In P2 is Pim van Gastel, ahead of Andres Vince, Sebastian De Frenze, Anthony Heitzmer in P5, ahead of Koscheck, Soloway's Kyle Gresh, Brian Fiola's making it to P8, and Kyle Clenworth making it to 9th. Liam O'Sullivan eats a major time penalty over the line, sending him to the back of his lap.
And then in 11th will be Bryce Saucier. In 12th, your league owner Julian Altena, and then in lucky position 13, Roden Eftink, who coming into this race was your championship leader, but I'm not so sure if he'll keep that after everything is said and done. And 14th is Gary Lovern, who was in second for a lot of this for that back part of the race, but unfortunately had that contact with Liam O'Sullivan. And then in 15th is Shane Kosher, Nicholas Pressey. In 17th, Senna Bakoven, Marcus Teixeira. In 19th is Matthias Strauss, and then to wrap up your top 20 is Edson Santos.
Early retirements from Katie Polak, Dan Ench, Jaco Singers, and John Christensen finish the race. And if you retired early, you probably didn't even get to see any of the madness that defined today's race. There's always something unusual to change the pace here at VOR. Looking to try and get some of these top drivers in for interview. I don't know if we're going to be able to get Timothy Bray in time. I'm hoping so, but we definitely have P3 and P2. So we'll start backwards, I think, and we'll work our way up the pack. I'm going to begin us with Andres Vince. Well, after all is said and done, Andres Vince, you believe it, you are P3 on the road. A very long race. You can get us started however you quite feel like.
Hi guys. That was a huge surprise for me. I wasn't really expecting a podium finish, but this is what it is. It is basically feels better when you achieve it by having a decent pace. I think my short run pace wasn't that good, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm happy for this P3 because I wasn't expecting anything like this.
Well, a long, long, long race filled with strategy that suddenly got changed into crazy 180 oddballs. How were you planning on playing that race, and did the factors with the yellows on the track change the way you were to play?
Yeah, I was actually expecting a lot of green, races, long runs actually, because previously when I raced here, this track is more forgiving in terms of yellow flags. But yeah, it turned out to be a sprint race at the end, and I was lucky with my strategy because I put on some extra fuel, so I was able to really push it to the edge in the engine map mode. So yeah.
Heading to the Brickyard for 2 races in a row down the line. Of course, we'll be participating in the 500 qualifying off the broadcast, but then you have the GP and the 500. How do you think those are going to treat you?
I actually love the Indy 500. Usually, I finish in the top 10, so I'm expecting the same result. But yeah, there are a lot of talented and good guys and fast guys around me, so this is going to be a challenge. For the Indy GP, I'm not really sure. It's a love and hate relationship for me with this track. It kind of feels odd to race in Indianapolis on a road track, but overall, it's not that bad. We will see. I don't really have any huge expectation for myself in the GP.
And before we move on, do you have any other thank yous or shout outs before we move on?
Yeah, I would like to thank my teammate Sabolch, who wasn't able to make it to the race. We make a good team, and hopefully he will race next time. And I had a accident at one of the restart where I clipped Brian Fiola's front wing. I don't know if it was me who made a mistake or it was just a racing incident, but anyway, I want to apologize to him here as well.
Well, on the road, that makes you P3, no matter quite how it happens. It was a very exciting race out there. We're looking forward to seeing more of you on the track.
Thank you very much.
That was Andres Vince, our P3 finisher, and that leaves you, Lucas, with Pim van Gastel in P2.
Yes, I am with the driver of the 10 machine, finished second place, Pim van Gastel. Great race out there, a lot about survivability. Talk us through how you're able to survive, keep that car steady the entire time, and bring it home to a second place finish.
Yeah, I wasn't actually expecting this, to be honest. I didn't have a great feel with the car at the start of the race. I didn't have much practice, but I tried to fuel save as much as possible and to keep the car in one piece. And yeah, in the second part of the race, I found the pace and somehow brought me into the podium.
Yeah, so you talk about that fuel strategy. Talk us through how you kind of decided when you wanted to save, how much you wanted to save. Do you have external tools like iOverlay or Race Labs that are helping you with that? What numbers were you really trying to follow here?
Yeah, I use Race Labs for it, but I just tried to save as much as possible as I had no pace on the first stint. I just tried to keep up with the car in front and save as much as I could to maybe save out a stop. But because of the cautions, that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, and then looking into the future, we're going to the racing capital of the world for 2 races. We've got the Indy GP and the full-length Indy 500, of course. Out of those 2 races, which one are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking most forward to the road course because I unfortunately have to miss the 500.
Dang, that's
So,
not
yeah,
the best. That's a fun race too, yeah.
I'll be on holiday, so I cannot do it.
Well, that's all good. And one last question before I send you off. Do you have any people or sponsors you'd like to thank or shout out here?
Yeah, congrats to Timothy on the win, and Anthony in P5, good team result, and yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Pim Van Gastel, your second place finisher. And I think Howie is standing by with our race winner.
Timothy Bray, I think all three drivers in the booth here are going to say that they are very, very surprised to be here. You're one of them too, but you inherited that win, and what a way to do it.
Yeah, pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. So random.
So, you had a race that, like many of those in the top three, felt a bit anonymous, but you were battling, you were in those chases, and you were going up and down the pack. How did it really play out for you?
Just got to be there at the end. Just same approach to every single race. You know, just do the best I can to avoid all the wrecks at the beginning, learn the track, get my grooves, learn what goes on at the high line, low line, you know. And yeah, we were there the last 30 laps. I'm like, wow, we're in the top 5, top 7. I might actually be able to win this if a few things go my way. And sure enough, they did.
And the pit strategy for this race, was your overall game plan really affected by any of those cautions that came out, or where you just happened? Did you get a little bit blessed along the way?
Yeah, I think we got a little help with that last yellow. Kept us up at the front. Didn't have to pit again, but really, pit strategy was kind of irrelevant for me, honestly. Just tried to avoid all the wrecks and just be there at the end. And yeah, I don't know. Pit strategy didn't really play a factor for me. Just the last yellow came out and had enough fuel, so.
And you got to sure have a win to celebrate, no matter how it happens. Do you have any other thank yous or shout outs for the audience at home?
No, just appreciate Julian and the league. It's a great league. I love hopping in here and doing these races. Great competition every single week, and I learn a lot from the guys around me. So it's always fun, you know. I get better as a driver every week, and now I got something to show for it. So pretty excited.
Well, a win is a win on the track, and you're sure going to be remembered for how that one happened. Hope you're able to enjoy and celebrate, and we'll see you around in Indy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, a day that went from the best of VOR to the craziest of VOR. I could talk about that a million more times, or we could just reflect on where we're going up next, Lucas. That was an absolute joy.
Yeah, we're going next to Indianapolis. It is one of my favorite tracks, just for the fact that I'm literally an hour and a half from it. Of course, I go to school up in Muncie at Ball State University, so I've made my way to a lot of these races. You know, the Battle of the Bricks is happening soon, the IMSA 6 hour, so I'll be there. And of course, I went to the last two Indy 500s, so of course I'm so excited to get on with those races, and I cannot wait for that.
We've talked a lot more about what's down the line for the VOR IndyCar series, but the Green Flag TV channel still brings a lot. Next up, later on tonight, is the SRA Gen 4 series. They're an absolute thrill last week in Atlanta, and they're followed later on in the week by the OMSRL Gold Series, and of course, the Beer League, bringing the SFL to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Next up for the VOR League will be Indy 500 qualifying. This doesn't get broadcasted, but then you get back-to-back excitement on the channel as you get to watch the Indy GP, a 2x sprint race, followed by the full-length 500. It's an absolute honor to bring this series to you, and we're going to keep it rolling down the line. Also, the Classic IndyCar series, of course, on this channel as ever, bringing a different kind of IndyCar to the circuit. So no matter what, there's something for you on the channel. But until the next time we meet, I've been Howie Burrows alongside Lucas Moody. Thank you very much for watching, and we wish you well out there on the track.
Peace.